Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Safe House, brought to you by the Safe House Initiative. I'm Jeff Edwards, co chair of the Safe House Initiative, and your host for today's podcast. Welcome back to our summer cyber insurance series. Last week, Heather Mongeau helped us understand the process of underwriting, basically the process that an insurance company goes through to write a cyber policy and the risk that they're willing to assume and by what parameters in order to issue a policy. So, what do you have in store for us today, Tawana?
Well, Jeff, today we have Brandy Vargas, the Senior Manager of Cyber Solutions at Crum Forster. Hi, Brandy.
Hi, Tawana. How are you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
I am so good. Happy it's Friday. Happy to be here as well. So thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us. Brandy, can we get started today by just introducing yourself to our audience and explaining what you do?
So yeah, Tawana, in my role, basically I've been at Crum now for 3 years. Crum Forster is part of Fairfax, we're a 200-year-old insurance carrier. And it's been a great 3 years. Basically, a lot of my time is spent working closely with our insured. We do a lot of things like onboarding calls to help them understand what does incident response look like? Who are all the vendors involved? What to do when you have an incident? Make that call and help get people in right away. We help prepare them for the renewal process by talking about their controls. We do things like targeted and timely workshops, tabletop, lots of things, that come with a cyber insurance policy that insured should be tapping into. We also do, a lot of work with our broker partners, also manage our panel of vendors. So we get to work closely with law firms like yours, forensics vendors, other IR response vendors. So it's a lot of different things, but it all kind of makes sense and keeps us very busy throughout the day.
Sounds like it. It sounds like you've got your hands in a lot of different pots, so to speak.
Yep, absolutely. It's a good time though, and I think with my background, prior to coming to Crum, I was the director of cyber operations for an MSSP, and in that role, focused on incident response, penetration testing, vulnerability assessments, MDR. Also was the compliance committee chair, so implemented a GRC tool and lots of hands-on work internally. Part of that worked in e-discovery and forensics for a Fortune 500 company as a litigation support specialist. And that I think having that background both in-house, vendor, and now at the carrier, I think that helps me in working with our insureds to make sure that they see the big picture, and I can also relate to them from having been in their position.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so, Brandy, how do you think some of these more technical communications about incidents and policies and things of that nature, how do you think we can simplify that down for a small to mid-sized business owner?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I think, everyone receives information differently. One
Hmm.
thing that works really well when we're educating, um, you know, our insureds, our broker partners, and others are analogies, right? You try to make it relatable. If you want to talk about security for your home or for a bank, and try to find a way to say, like, this, don't be scared of cybersecurity, right? Let's see how we can align this with kind of what you're used to talking about. And then it's not as overwhelming. So we all know that within cyber applications, and every application is very different in the questions that they ask, how they ask them, that there's usually a yes or no answer, right? And sometimes there's a gray area. And it's best to provide context if that is the case instead of just saying yes or no. Because underwriters will look at the controls as a whole. It's not just one thing. It's not just do you have EDR? It's not just do you have backups? Not just do you have MFA? It is taking everything into consideration. And so when we talk about trying to simplify things, I think it's really important when we get on the phone with insureds to talk through what do you have? Um, let's cut through the marketing jargon, right, of the products that you may have and talk about the capabilities and talk about the balance of risk. And once we do that and talk in their language, I think it does help simplify things a bit.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I think you have a really unique skill set in being able to communicate that effectively for sure.
Thank you. Yeah, I really enjoy working with our insureds the most to talk through these problems. A lot of folks are just trying to get insurance and get that renewal process over with, but they want to do it right. I really don't think that a lot of people do things wrong intentionally. It's more about just understanding. And so it's really why it's really important to have a relationship with your broker and your carrier to understand their questions, and provide that feedback and have meaningful conversations.
Yeah, completely agree. And that ties in perfectly with my next question. Is there a particular aspect of a cyber policy that small to mid-sized business owners most frequently misunderstand?
Yeah, I think the first one, is really just not understanding that cyber insurance is very different than other types of insurance, right? When you have an incident or you have a high suspicion of an incident, the best thing you can do before you go out and get vendors on your own and just respond and say, "Hey, insurance paid a check." That's the worst way to go about it. For those listening who do have cyber insurance or are small business owners, there is a process that you should follow. That process is usually covered, through like an onboarding call, maybe in some policy documentation. But really, best practice is to call your carrier. They work with these different IR vendors, incident response vendors, every day. This is all they do. And so they can really help you make sure to get the right vendor for the right incident. Talk about making sure that whether things are approved or not, under your policy, so you can kind of have an idea of what out of pocket you're going to be spending. So that's one thing, is just really understanding the process, right, of cyber insurance, and it's not just about filing a claim; it's about getting assistance. We also, I didn't mention this earlier, but we also work with our insureds and our vendors during an incident, right, to make sure that they're getting everything that they need to make sure and streamline that process. So that's something that I work on often. The other part I would say is really just understanding, panel versus non-panel vendors. How does that work with your policy? Every policy is different. Whether you have a retention, how much is it? What does that mean? There are some exclusions and endorsements within policies, and I know those can all get kind of in the weeds if you don't have like a focused risk manager or someone who really understands insurance. But that's really where your broker comes in to make sure that they can break down everything for you so you understand it, as best as possible.
And that's probably something that you cover during the onboarding process as well, right?
It is, absolutely, and that's why I encourage, we try not to, necessarily force people. We don't wanna force people to do an onboarding call, but we wanna welcome and encourage it as much as possible. We know that everyone's busy. We try to keep it very targeted, to like 30 minutes, more if our insureds wanna have a deeper discussion. But we usually find that on those calls, people learn a lot about what they did not know. Tawana, you
Mhm.
and I work on incidents every day,
Every
right? We
day.
have for
Yep.
years. Yeah, that's our life. We live for it. For some reason, we're crazy. Um, but for a lot of people, this is their first merry-go-round, right? This is their first time dealing with an incident. And I know you know that more than anyone, you end up being kind of a therapist
Yes.
working with them. Um, but because it's jarring, right? It is a really terrible experience. And so we have to remember that hopefully our insureds have never been through something. If they have an understanding, but depending on who they worked with, from a vendor perspective, or they dealt with it in house, the ordeal of it all, right? The experience could be different. And so we try to just take them through and break it down. Like, here's what to expect. We want clear expectations. As much as we can control, things, we want to, because there's a lot of uncontrollable things happening. But yeah, we tend to go through all of that information. We go through, hey, here are the free resources that are available as part of your policy to help you prepare and try to prevent an incident. Here's how we assist when an incident occurs. Again, working with your broker to make sure you understand your coverage, kind of touching on some of that coverage. So it's a really great thing. And I encourage anyone listening, if you have not already done so, reach out to your broker or your carrier and say, hey, do you offer an onboarding call? Can I please take advantage of that so I know what is going to happen if I do have a claim?
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree, Brandy. So many times I get on the first call with clients who are in the heat of a ransomware attack, and they're on the verge of tears thinking that this business that they've poured their heart and soul into is just over. So yes, definitely being able to communicate that and, as you say, be a therapist and help clients understand they will get through this and it's not the end of
Yeah,
their world for sure. I
it's
think that's definitely helpful.
it's really heartbreaking. I mean, to your point, it really is
Mhm.
to see someone going through that, especially the smaller organizations. And then you have the rise of these third-party vendor attacks, right?
Mhm.
Where for so long we've seen ransomware and business email compromise kind of dominate from a number of claims, number of incidents perspective. Now we see third-party vendor incidents outpacing that by far.
Yeah.
So when we talk about risk, it's not just your organization and how well are you securing your infrastructure and email and other things. It's how well are you vetting your vendors and how much impact, could that have on you if that vendor were compromised?
Yeah, definitely something that is important to look at before entering into any vendor contracts.
Exactly.
So we've talked a little bit about resources and tools that Crum Forster offers to insureds to better understand insurance and the onboarding process and the importance of brokers. Are there any other resources or tools that you can recommend to small to mid-sized businesses to better understand cyber insurance coverage?
Yeah, I mean, as far as, coverage, I would just say, again, just read through it, talk to your broker. If you don't understand something, ask questions. Don't be shy. No question is a bad question when it comes to insurance because there's a lot to it, right? In the policy
Mhm.
language. I know here at Crum, we have a thing called Simple Cyber. We really try to make cyber simple because we know that people need to get on with the work that they're doing, right? Cyber insurance and other insurance products that they're buying is just a part of doing business. And so we want to simplify that process as much as possible. But we understand that everyone has a different level of understanding. So I just go back to, your broker is your best resource to ask questions, and they can funnel those up to the carrier if need be. Having those conversations during the onboarding calls. I would say from a what other resources are available as a whole. Something I did not mention is that a lot of carriers provide things like phishing and security awareness training, lots of policy templates. If you're like, hey, we don't have an incident response plan, I don't even know where to get started with that. Your carrier usually or your broker has access to templates for you. There are a ton of resources. Again, just make sure to tap into those, look at what's available. It's kind of sad when it goes to waste because when we talk about SMBs, and that's the topic of today, talking about investing $5 or $10,000 into a phishing and security awareness training platform can be a lot for them. So if you
Mhm.
can get that free as part of your policy or other, tools like a tabletop, which can sometimes cost 15 or 20K plus,
Yeah.
um, those are things that are going to save you money. So while you're thinking, oh man, my premium is $30,000. That's a lot of money. But if you can offset that by taking advantage of the free resources, then you can kind of see where there's a balance there of what you're spending on security as a whole.
Yeah, for sure. You've already paid for those resources, so definitely take advantage of
Exactly.
it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Hey, Tawana, can I ask a question of Brandy, please?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Brandy, I always ask our guests if there's one thing that you could do today for our listeners, what would that one thing be that would improve their overall, security or their posture for, resilience?
I kind of always say do the table stake things, right? The basic things, your MFA, your endpoint detection and response, your
Hmm.
vulnerability. That's a lot, right? So I recognize that when it's like, what is one thing you can do? I think the best thing that you can do is take the guidance and understand, when meeting with your broker, your carrier, getting some of that free consulting, that is one of the best things that you can do that are usually free, and don't
Yeah.
require so much of a heavy lift. Um, there are things that you can do that cost money, that cost a lot of time because you're having to set things up, implement them, configure them. So would you say what is the one thing you can do? Take the advice that's given to you by the people who have the same goals as you, right? To try to prevent a cyber attack in the first place, but also reduce your exposure if you were to experience something. So that's kind of an open-ended thing, but again, meet with the folks who are on your side.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you check to see if you have a policy, and then check into that with through your broker, see what's
Yeah,
covered and what's free, sort of a thing.
I to your point, have a cyber insurance policy because
Yeah.
it's not about, people say this all the time. It's not about, you know, if it's about when, and that's true. People think, why would someone attack
Yeah.
me? I'm this small, or I bake have a bakery right in town or something like that. If you are connected to the internet, you are a target. It's not necessarily a size thing. It's a you are vulnerable. And
Yeah.
so, just don't try to deal with a cyber incident alone. Have cyber insurance and make sure that you make that phone call when something has happened, because I can't tell you the number of times where, especially small businesses, and I love working with SMBs because they need the most help. They try to go it alone. Lo and behold, 2 weeks later, the threat actor's back in, right? And they say, oh, well, we deleted that account. We reset those credentials. We reset MFA. These threat actors are keeping a foothold into the environment. And if you don't have the right support, you're going to find yourself in that same situation a few weeks or months later, and you're just going to end up spending more money than you would have if you would have just dealt with it right in the first place.
Yeah, and I think that's really one of the driving forces for this series this summer was that the realization that less than 5% of small mid-sized businesses have a standalone cyber policy. So that's 95% that do not. And part of it's education and understanding the tremendous value. It's not just about risk transfer, more of a financial type of a risk transfer. It is about the active way you can prevent and also remedy all the services that become part of a policy.
Yeah, I think you just hit the nail on the head, Jeff. Um, what I know of SMBs is they get a cyber insurance policy or coverage in some form because they're contractually required to, right, to get
Yeah,
business. And they just see it as we just have to do this. I think people need to open their eyes to the true value of it. If something were to happen, you have costs spanning from, the legal guidance and advisement, the forensics, and I kind of walk through this, right? You have the forensics, you have if you need a ransom negotiator, if you need a
mm,
ransom payment facilitator to make that payment, if you cannot recover, you have restoration fees if you end up needing to notify people, right? Maybe employees or clients because their data was impacted. You may have to do data mining. That is very
yeah,
costly. Credit monitoring, notification, getting those letters out. After you go through all those expenses and tally them up, and then potentially maybe you get sued, maybe
yeah.
later, 6 months, you get a complaint. Um, those costs add up very quickly. And so when we talk about cyber insurance, that's what we want people to understand because they don't look that far down the road.
Yeah, no, Tawana's job as a breach coach, as I understand it, she part of her job is to she's the bag person, so she delivers the payments, and is that
So,
true?
no, I'm not
Oh,
meeting people with a briefcase and unmarked bills at a bus stop,
oh, oh, okay.
unfortunately.
That'd be a really
I,
cool job, though, Tawana. I'm sure you'd have some
I
really
know.
funny stories.
well, that's kind of up my alley. So and maybe I'll apply for that.
Yeah.
I'll keep my eyes out for you,
I'll be
Jeff,
the only
for a
bagman
job.
in the industry at that point. Anyway,
She tells the people delivering the bag to make sure it gets
yeah.
done.
Yeah, I'm the
Yes.
bag man. I like it. It's something I could do. It doesn't take a lot of brain pan. But anyway, hey, Brandy, very insightful. Really appreciate your joining us today, Tawana and myself. Uh, you're wonderful to have as a guest. You're welcome back anytime because I'm sure we'll have a lot more questions that will come as part of this podcast when it airs. But you're going to help a lot of people. And thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. I really enjoy your podcast. You have so many wonderful sessions, and so I'm just so pleased to be a part of it. So thank you for having me.
Uh, Absolutely. Well, Tawana, your
Yes.
adventure continues next week. Can you
Yes.
kind of give us a glimpse of what we're going to do?
Yes. Next week, we are talking to Tony Sukan. She is a cyber claims examiner, and she's going to talk us through the process of how the insurance carrier manages a claim in terms of, working with the insured on selecting panel vendors and what's covered and what's not, and just through that entire process to actually help the insured come out better on the other side.
Excellent. Looking forward to it.
Me too.
Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
Jeff.
you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Brandy.
That's our podcast for today. I'm Jeff Edwards for the Safe House Initiative. Thanks for joining us. And remember, be safe, be resilient, and be kind to each other. For more information about the Safe House Initiative, please use your mobile device to scan the QR code on the screen or send us an email at info@safehouseinitiative.org or visit us on our website, safehouseinitiative.org. We look forward to hearing from you.